investigator, and involved in DHR or ICMR projects. She presented more than 30 scientific presentations and attended more than 50 workshops. And she also guided several postgraduate university students for their internships. She coordinated around 15 training workshops for students, doctors, researchers, and public health workers. We are happy to have you with us today, ma'am. Now, I request Dr. Vashna Joshna, ma'am, to take over this session. Now, the session is yours, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much for your kind words. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. Yeah, I welcome each one of you for this session. So I will be talking about mapping disease data. Now I will share my slides with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know I will change it, sir.
I will change it now.
Ma'am, your screen is visible, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Today I am going to talk about mapping disease data. So what is mapping? So we often talk about the word mapping. Mapping can be made on a sand using a stick. A villager can draw a map of his own village on the sand and he can guide the persons. Mapping can be done using paper and pencil. Any workers can give a layout of their workplace in a particular place or time. Mapping can be made sophisticated by using software like GIS. A cartographer can create a series of forest areas, mountain areas, water bodies, etc. for any state, country, or region. So, the first mapping was done by Dr. John Snow. In 1854, a major cholera outbreak appeared in London, Soho district, which had taken nearly 600 lives. When Dr. Snow using a hand-drawn map showed that the disease was due to contaminated water under a water pump. By plotting each known cholera case on a street map of Soho district, Snow could see that cases occurred almost entirely among those who lived near the Broad Street pump. This pump drew water polluted with London sewage from the lower Thames River. See, so a major cholera outbreak appeared in Soho district, which took nearly 600 lives. And Snow was explaining that it was due to contamination of water around that happened around a Broad Street pump. But people were saying that it was due to cemetery wherein they buried plague victims. So they were arguing too much. So what happened, one day he removed the handle of that pump so that people could not take water from that pump. Gradually, the outbreak decreased. So Snow recommended that the handle of this pump may be removed, and this simple action stopped the outbreak and proved his theory that cholera is transmitted through contaminated drinking water. People could also see that cholera deaths were not confined to the area around the cemetery of the plague victims, and were thus convinced that the infection was not due to vapors coming from it as they first thought. So they were convinced with the findings. So this was the first map of John Snow, but redrawn. So here you can see that the address with the cholera deaths, and the water pump is shown by the red dots, and this is the former plague cemetery. Victims that were buried in this cemetery. So this map was redrawn using the GIS software. So the origins of spatial mapping appeared from John Snow. A map was used to examine the geographical locations of cholera cases in relation to the other features on the map, that is water pumps and cemetery of plague victims. So John Snow and cholera deaths in London in 1850s used mapping to help determine source of contamination. So this is how the mapping started in early 1850s. Why mapping disease data important? It is important in the management of the disease condition, helpful in detecting relationships between human and diseases. Models are built using disease incidence or prevalence and risk-related factors, referred as the map communication model. It facilitates the management of disease by health authorities and policy makers. These maps can help to raise awareness and vigilance among the people. So, for mapping, 3S technology plays a vital role. What are these 3S technology? Everybody must be well known about this. One is Geographic Information System, Global Positioning System, and Remote Sensing System. Okay, so geospatial mapping means without these three, you cannot do mapping. At least one must be there. So now we will see what is geographic information. Information about places on the Earth's surface, knowledge about where something is, knowledge about what is at a given location, can be very detailed or very coarse, often relatively static, can be very voluminous. So what is geographic information system? A computer system for storing, analyzing, manipulating and mapping information about any phenomenon that can be referenced to a specific location or area. It brings together database operations and mapping capabilities. It is used by health planners, managers, all health authorities, health insurance companies, and many more. So, geographic information system, here you can see the diagrammatic representation of geographic information system. So, it is a collection of hardware. You need a hardware, you need a software and a geographic data, and you need methods. Methods must be known to all, and you need expert like GIS analysis to do this, to do any type of analysis. So they are designed for capturing, storing, updating, manipulating, analyzing and displaying all forms of geographically referenced information. So now we will see one by one. Just I will sensitize with the terminology. I will not go deep into it. Global positioning system, system of Earth orbiting satellites transmitting precisely timed signals. Signals are received by a special electronic device. It provides direct measurement of position on the Earth's surface. Location is expressed in terms of latitude, longitude, altitude, or other standard system. So any location expressed in terms of latitude, longitude is geographically located data. we call that as a georeference data. So method of data collection, we use handheld GPS, and let us suppose this is an area wherein some roughly about 100 households are there. So you take this handheld GPS. This handheld GPS, now it's available with our smartphone, wherein we trace when we call for a taxi, Uber or some other agency, you can watch where the driver is, where the vehicle is, whether it is caught in between some heavy traffic area, how much time it will take, how much distance it will take. All these things are based on the inbuilt GPS in the smartphone. Similarly, there's a separate smartphone wherein you can digitize the entire study area. You can digitize the latitude, longitude values, and here you can see a high-end GPS wherein you can register all you can do the entire survey and record the data. So it depends upon your need. Suppose if you want to do a study in a farmhouse area type of residence, then you can go for a simple lower model GPS. It may cost 1,000 to maybe 5,000 also. Even 2,000 I feel it's good. But if you want to do a survey in a clustered area like slum population, wherein every household is very close to each other and adjacent in nature, so in that case you should go for a high-end GPS. Then only at least in the 5th decimal point there will be variation in the values. So if you want to build a complex model using the latitude location parameter, then you have to go for high-end GPS. So it depends upon your need. What this GPS, high-end GPS does is, you can take the photo. Here you can see 2 photos wherein one is a dumping site, waste dumping site, and this is waste water stagnation points. So you can take a photo. That photo, if you check the GPS location, it will exactly go and fit in that position, and you can digitize the entire area. See, this starts with first household. You can start collecting information of this type. So household number 1, who is the head of the household, it belongs to first cluster, door number. This will be inbuilt. Here I have just shown it. Sex, age, education, their diabetic condition, hypertension, whether they suffer from high blood pressure and so on. So we call this as attribute data. This attribute data, as well as this type of photos, as well as the entire map, will be digitized using this type of higher end GPS. So it will be very useful. So once you finish the study, you will be having the entire set of data at your hand. It can be using a software, it can be transferred to Excel, DBF or any format, and straight away you can do the analysis. So GPS will be very useful in the method of data collection. Then the third one is remote sensing. So these are aerial photos, satellite imagery. From these type of images, we will be able to access environmental factors that promotes disease transmission, perform multi-sectoral categorization of vegetation cover, landscape structure and water bodies, perform detection analysis to find temporal patterns. So data can be extracted from satellite imagery, photos, data captured from remote locations using sensors, simple smart card readers. So soil or vegetation characteristics can be extracted from these type of aerial photos and satellite imagery. So here also we will be receiving data or extracting data from using the remote sensing technology. So mapping requirements. So what are the things I already have said? You need to have a digitized map. What is a digitized map? If you place your cursor on the map, it should show the latitude and longitude value. So that means that map is a digitized map. So and when you place either in zone 1, suppose if you place your cursor in zone 1, it should relate to that attribute data. So everything will be linked to each other. So you need an attribute data. First of all, you need a digitized map. Then you need an attribute data. You need a computer hardware, software to run the GIS analysis. There are several methods, from simple exploratory method to complex models. There are several methods. Somebody must be able to run such programs and interpret it, and you need for that experts in that field. So I would like to emphasize here that data is very crucial. Suppose if you put garbage in, you will be getting garbage out. Spatial data, then attribute data, everything is very crucial, and data is the key, and it's the quality, and it needs to be complete. Missing data, if you have a lot of missing data, your results will not be very precise, and the data must be accurate and updated periodically. That is also very important. If you are going to give a map belongs to some 10 years back, it will not be of any value now. So you should update the data periodically. How does a GIS works? So imagine an overhead projector with a series of transparencies laid upon it. Each transparency is about your village, but drawn to the same scale, and can therefore be integrated with others. And each transparency deals with a different topic. So it's like placing these we call as layers. So this is a road layer, healthcare facility layer, disease outbreak. Suppose it may be some cholera, some other disease outbreaks, and this is the panchayat divisions. So several layers, you can have any number of layers. So that is the data collection part, which is very crucial in GIS analysis or mapping analysis. Okay, so here I am showing you the state Himachal Pradesh with all the districts. This is my layer 1. This is a digitized map of administrative boundaries of Himachal Pradesh, and layer 2, health facilities available in each of these districts. Layer 3, national highways, roadways. So this also has been digitized separately. So I am combining these 3 layers to get an overlaid layer. So this is how you build up the layers in GIS. Capabilities of GIS. So background. Now I will be explaining I will be explaining with the example of Chennai city map. I'll be using the older version. That is, this is the old one. This is the old map, wherein you have 10 zones, 155 water divisions, consists of 174 square kilometers. And this is the new map with the 15 zones and 200 water divisions, which consists of 426 square kilometers. And the population was earlier 47 lakhs. After November 2011, it was 69 lakhs, and before it contains 1,700 slums, and immediately in November 2011, 2,478 slums. So I will be explaining all my thing using this older version as well as the newer version. So Chennai city, earlier I was showing you the zones here. This is the zonal map and 155 divisions. So this is one way of showing your study area. So this is the earlier version. in the newer version, that is after November 2011, we have 15 zones and you have 200 watts. And this is the St. Thomas Mount area. So I have given a value 0. Okay, so this is the two things. Zonal, this is watts. And when you starting doing your mapping exercise, first you have to say to the audience that your location, I'm talking about the location. My location is in India and Tamil Nadu, and it's Chennai city, the newer one. So whatever may be, suppose if you're talking about some other state and your study area is a remote area, try to show a location map saying that this is my study area. And the first thing in map analysis, you should do an exploratory analysis, spatial data analysis or exploratory analysis you should do. This is, I will be explaining only these three things: choropleth map, dot density map, cartograms. So this is the choropleth map, distribution of malaria cases in Chennai city. The Greek word, it represents a Greek word. Choro means area, pleth means value. A map showing different colors based on quantitative data. So see here, this is malaria cases in 2011, and this blue color shows the number of malaria cases, 218 to 357, and this value in this brown, dark brown, this northeastern, it was 3,397. It varied from 3,300 so this value lies between 3,397 to 5,654. This is the choropleth map for the Chennai city, wherein population distribution of Chennai city is shown. See, this is the population, and this Adayar zone 13, I think so. It has got the highest population value. So this map is called a choropleth map. It gives a picture. It shows the variation in the values. And this map is called a dot density map, where one dot represents one case. This is in 1995 and 2001. Here also you can see how the dots are clustered in towards the northeast end. This is dot density showing zone-wise COVID-19 deaths during second week of May 2021. So here you see number of deaths. So this is one way of showing the pattern or the clustering of the cases. This is called a cartogram, wherein the magnitude is represented by the size of the circle. So this is cartogram showing zone-wise COVID-19 cases registered. COVID-19 cases registered in Chennai city during second week of May 2021. So this much size shows 1 to 2 deaths are there, and this is the highest number, 11 to 12. So this type of map showing the size and the magnitude is represented by the size of the circle is called a cartogram map. So now we will see what are the capabilities of GIS. There are several things I have shortlisted: pattern, trend, hotspots, association, buffer creation, prediction or modeling, and its use for sampling. So I will be explaining only these 7 things. First we will see pattern. What is the pattern? Allows researchers and planners to describe and compare the distribution of phenomena and understand the process which account for their distribution. Like example, is there some pattern in the distribution of diseases? See, distribution of annual parasite index of malaria cases in Chennai city in 2001. So when I use the word API, it is it represents annual parasite index, and it is the number of malaria cases, malaria positive patients per 1,000 inhabitants. So in 2001, see the northeast end is very highly endemic for malaria. So trend means involves monitoring things changing over time. What is the change in the annual parasite index of malaria or HIV prevalence or any other disease prevalence in a particular place over a period of time? Maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, like that. See distribution of annual parasite index of malaria cases in Chennai city. This is ward-wise and year-wise. So 1998, 99, 2000, this is 2001. Here you can see that it keeps on, it has been decreased, but still this northeast part of Chennai city remains highly endemic. So it shows the trend. Suppose if you take some 10 years, or you will see whether it is increasing or remaining the same or decreasing. That type of trend can be assessed using such maps. This is also one way of representing the trend. See, a distribution of API over the years 1995 to 2001. So it remains, malaria cases remains the same. It is 9.5 value, and it remains the same, but lies between 2 and 9.5. This blue color. This green color remains the same, but it's less than 2. Oscillating and decreased in 2001. Oscillating and increased in 2001. So this one, first one black, and this one, if you should take first priority for any for any intervention program. You have to look at that which remains the same with the higher value, and it has been increased over a period of time. So priority care, such type of maps are very helpful. And hotspots. So this is done using an interpolation technique. So here you have information for this ward wise. You have the information for 155 wards, and if you want to interpolate all the all the grid value, you have to use the software and interpolate. So based on the 155 values, it will interpolate and give you values for every grid point. When you place the cursor on any grid point, it will show the annual parasite index of malaria cases for that particular place. So, and we have created a buffer. This is a buffer of some 5 kilometers radius. And here you can see that throughout our exercise, it's shown that towards the northeast end, it has remained the same. And distribution of annual parasite index of malaria in Chennai city, zone-wise breeding source for the year 2001. So this is open sump. This red color bar shows the open sump, overhead tank, and this is open well. All are open. So this is the background, shows the API variation values. So this part is very high. Here you can see that, and here the reason maybe means this open sump, that percentage of open sumps in this area is very high. And here this also is overhead tanks also open, well is also open, but most of the sumps were open. So priority care was given in that area during that period, seeing that all the open sumps are closed, cleaned and closed. So this type of map is helpful for such intervention. So buffer creation, as I have already shown, to understand the association between prevalence of childhood leukemia in a particular region and the proximity to nuclear stations. You create a buffer to find out how many persons live within a 10 kilometers radius from a particular PHC. It is also used to understand the association between prevalence of leprosy in 2 taluks of Tamil Nadu and the factors associated with leprosy. For anything, with the purpose you can have a buffer creation for mainly used for intervention type of things. See, so this is the same thing in 2001. This is a dot map, and this area, a buffer has been created, and the image. See, we are interested only in Chennai city. Outside this, we are not going to give. We are not giving the priority care. So what we have done is we have created a buffer and clipped the image. So here you can go in depth to it and study, and you can take, you can do any intervention program in this area. So modeling what if questions are posed to determine what happens. Example, if a dam is built, how many people will be displaced? This is a simple model. So if a new road is added to an existing network, what will happen? How many people have to be displaced to some other place? Okay, so in such situation, everywhere GIS is used. I doubt whether there is any field wherein GIS is not used. So it's very helpful and it gives a clear picture. Always I used to say, instead of talking in thousand of words, if you show one picture, it carries a very good message to all, even a lay person. If a toxic substance seeps into the local groundwater supply, what will happen? You can ask all these things by building a model. So I'm going to do, I'm going to show you an analysis done, a simple model. That is, I have created an index development and mapping illiteracy in Chennai city in 2011. So first thing, I have created an index, and second thing, I have mapped the illiteracy in Chennai city. Illiterate people who cannot read or write in Chennai city using 2011 data. For that, what data I have used is zone-wise data for the year 2011 from the Census of Corporation of Chennai, and also I have used from published reports. So what are the variables I have used or covariates I have used? First one, 11 covariates or variables I have used. Proportion of illiterates, proportion of female illiteracy, population, proportion of slum population, average family size, proportion of births, proportion of persons unemployed, proportion of tribal population, average number of children per government school, average number of persons using per public water facilities, and per public convenience also. Average number of persons using per public convenience. All these 11 covariates, it should be highly correlated to each other. So my intention is to create an index for illiteracy, and I want to rank the zone, and as well as I want to map it. So I've considered this 11 covariates, and I have used, I'm not going deep into it. This is I doubt whether everybody could understand. I've used factor analysis, wherein this factor analysis, you can give any number of covariates, must be highly correlated. It is a dimension reduction technique which gives you a small number of factors, from the highly correlated factors. Suppose I've given 11 variables, means I will get some 3 factors or 2 factors from this 11 covariates. So I have created I have derived an index using this factor analysis. So, so the computation of the standard, if you look at the last column, finally I have, I have got this index, standardized index value. So zone Y, 1 stands 100. That means it needs greater care. Zone 4 stands the value 94. And zone 3, 86, and so on. Zone 7, when comparatively, it needs less care. So the zone 1 needs greater care. So this is, I have created, for sake of explanation, I have taken some 10 zone. So that it may be easy for you. So I have created an index wherein it shows the magnitude, shows the intervention care needed. So actual value I get this, but I have standardized using this formula. So this you should you will understand, I think so. So it has been purposely written in the descending order. So zone one needs priority care, first priority care, second priority care is needed by zone 4, and next to zone 3, and so on. So I would say, if I consider 50 as an average value, these 4 zones need greater care to bring down illiteracy level. So first attention the health workers should give only for these 4 zones. So this is the mapping of illiteracy of Chennai city, and this is an I've used Kriging method and I have mapped. See this part 1, 3, 4. So this shows you need to give higher care for this. So when we went and saw, this area is like this, full of slums, and here a lot of migrants were there. So they did not give much attention to their studies. They go for coolie works, they spend they go for contract works, and they never attend the school. So a lot of population without any education level. They cannot read and write. Just they cannot put the signature. So at least the government should. This I am talking in 2011. So at that time, the government should plan for evening schools, night schools. So it was very helpful. This map was very helpful. So from this exercise, northern part of Chennai city needs greater care to bring down illiteracy. This was the simple model which is built on mapping analysis, and we derived to this conclusion. So this is one more exercise wherein the same thing, if you are interested, you can read this article, Spatial Mapping of COVID-19 for India using Principal Component Analysis. This is published, wherein step by step how this map has been derived, how the index has been derived. It is in the step by step algorithm. I have mentioned this. Those of you who are interested, you can read this article and understand more. So this GPS, we have done a survey, my colleague has done this, wherein we want to study the health impacts of quarry works among residents living within 5 kilometers surrounding the quarry. So when you go by bypass road from Anna Nagar to Tambaram, on that way you can see so many quarry works. So we want to study the health impacts of this quarry. So we were interested to study a population 5 kilometers radius surrounding 2 quarries. So we want to select 2 quarries wherein we needed 1,900 persons. So this sample size was derived from by a statistician. So we are in need of 1,900 persons. How we did this? Using GPS. We didn't have the sampling frame. So what we did is, using Google Map, you can draw grids. And this is our study area. This entire area, the study area divided into 30 into 30 meter grids. Then, so here you can see the numbering, and 2 quarries, 2 grids were selected wherein the quarries were there. Then we created a buffer. See, for example, 1 quarry is here, which lies in this grid. So we created a buffer of 2 kilometers, we created a buffer of 3 kilometers, we created a buffer of 5 kilometers to get the required number of persons. So GPS, only with GPS, we did this. So how we did this? We have given the latitude, longitude value. First thing, we freezed the commercial blocks, parks, some schools, everything we freezed it or we blocked it. Then we took a sample of the houses, and these are the houses that were selected. So we gave the latitude, longitude values in an Excel sheet to the field workers, with the GPS loaded with this latitude, longitude values. So when they start and move forward, it will go and land in that particular, it will show this is your destination. That's how we collected the information without any sampling frame. This was done in a very short span of time. It was very useful. So when sampling frame is not available, you can go for this type of grid sampling wherein you use GPS. It was very helpful. So recap, I would like to say that when you are doing a mapping exercise, first you should have a digitized map, administrative divisions. Then you should have a data. This data can be obtained from attribute data. You can collect your own data. You can get it from the satellite image. You can get it from some other imagery. So there are several data spread across the country. The only thing is you must be knowing how to handle the data, how to extract the data from some pictures, from satellite imagery, and you can add the data to your data what you have collected. Suppose if you want a vegetation data, if you want a soil data, you can extract from the satellite imagery. NASA is giving you free of cost. You have to register and you can get the data. But only thing is, if you want a very recent data, it's commercial. You have to pay some amount, then get it. For research purpose, a little older version, it's freely downloadable. You have to specify from this latitude point to this latitude, and from this longitude to this longitude. You fix a rectangle and you say, I need this data. Even immediately you can download it. So the data is widely available. You have to make use of it. Then once you get the data, you have the digitized map. Then you do first step is run through an exploratory data analysis. Then only you can frame your hypothesis, whether the disease are clustered, whether it is randomly distributed. So first you have to run an exploratory data analysis. Then you examine the pattern, whether like in our example, towards the northeast end, malaria cases were highly endemic. So such type of hypothesis you can build it looking at the exploratory data analysis and examining the pattern. Then you start building simple model, like placing one layer on the other, like how I was showing Himachal Pradesh, like that you can build one by one layer, do a simple model, then you can move for a complex model. This will lead you to make a decision and for intervention program. This will be very helpful. And I would like to recommend 2 books, How to Live with Maps. Really, you will enjoy. This is very old version. I had an opportunity to read this in ISA Calcutta, but latest version is available. If you get an opportunity, you will enjoy reading this book. And this book is little serious. How map works? What are the things you should give care, and you should do a map. So I advise you people to read these 2 books. It will be very helpful. And public sources of data, many of you would be knowing. See, National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, you have malaria data. I think from 2014 you have data. Dengue, chikungunya, filariasis, Kala-Azar, Japanese encephalitis. This is the website. And for dengue data, you have this special thing. And you have the IDSP program. They also have the data with them. National NFHS data, and which will give you mortality, morbidity, health status, risk factors. service provision, and World Health Survey data. There also you have all these things. UNICEF multi-indicator survey data. So you have annual reports wherein they have published summaries, not individual data, but you will get summary data. And IHMA, you have a large volume of data for various risk factors, mortality. For India alone, you have a technical report wherein you can get all these data. And National Health Mission, Rural Health Mission, NRHM, and district level household and facility survey, DLHS. So if you request, they will send you the individual level record on request for research purpose. So now data is not that much problem. It is widely widely available. You can download and you can try any research. If you are interested, you can try such way. And these are my references. So thank you so much for listening patiently. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this wonderful informative session, ma'am. We learned a lot about this upcoming data science world. And participants, the chat box is now open for your doubts. Thank you for making everything clear, ma'am. Participants, please fill the feedback form from the chat box. I would like to end this session with a vote of thanks. We are really thankful to have Dr. Vashna Joshna ma'am with us today. We learned a lot about mapping disease data. Thank you so much for enlightening us and taking us through this ML world. I could also like to thank our participants for making use of this wonderful session. Thank you so much all.
Thank you.